You might have noticed that the units of competency in the new training packages look different. That's because they have been designed to meet the new standards for training packages. The CHC and HLT packages are two of the first to be endorsed against the new standards. The first difference you'll notice is that the units are shorter and each unit is paired with its own assessment requirements document. Let's have a look at a sample unit. The first page looks fairly similar to the old-style units, particularly the elements and performance criteria. Elements set out the main steps in the work. Performance criteria set out the level of performance an individual needs to show. The individual has to be able to do each of these things to the standard outlined in the performance criteria. After the elements and performance criteria, you will start to see some new parts of the unit. The foundation skills describe language, literacy, numeracy, and employment skills that are essential to performance. Sometimes this is specific about one or more skills, but most units have made any foundation skills explicit in the performance criteria. Here is an example of where the foundation skills have been listed. Here is an example of where they are already in the performance criteria. There is another video you can look at specifically about foundation skills that gives more information. The range of conditions spells out different work environments and conditions that may affect performance. This is an optional field in the unit of competency and does not appear in many units. In previous versions of training package units, the range of variables section was often used to list a lot of definitions, and many people found it confusing, while RTOs found it hard to comply with. In this sample unit, you can see that the unit itself is about learning frameworks, and the range of conditions says that the learning framework used must be one listed in the Education and Care Services national regulations. In other words, it is helping you define the unit and work out how to apply it. Don't forget to follow and make use of the link to the companion volumes on the CS&HISC website for help. Now, looking at the assessment requirements, you will notice three main headings: performance evidence, knowledge evidence, and assessment conditions. Let's take them one at a time. First, performance evidence, or what is the process or product evidence? You can see here that the individual must have researched and documented various things, so you would be looking for evidence of them having followed a process. In this case, researching and having developed a product. Here, developing a document. Let's have a look at the performance evidence for another unit to see how different it is. In CHC-ECE 005, Provide Care for Babies and Toddlers, the candidate, among a list of other things, needs to have provided care to at least 3 different babies. In this unit, the candidate has to have performed the activities for at least 120 hours of work. Specifically, to have done activities outlined in performance criteria of this unit during a period of at least 120 hours of work in at least one regulated education and care service. That evidence an individual has to produce, they can use the 120 hours as part of that evidence for all of the units they're doing in a qualification. So if you're doing 4 units that have this requirement, you don't have to do 480 hours. Let's look at a couple of case studies. Jane has just started a traineeship at Clearview Children's Centre, a regulated education and care service. Now, Jane is enrolled in the Certificate 3. Her assessment for some of her units in this certificate happens after she has been in the job for 20 weeks. She's working 35 hours a week and studying while she works. By the time she's been in her job for those 20 weeks, she will have 700 hours of work in the centre, well over 120 hours, so Jane will meet that requirement. Another case study. Katarina has never worked in early childhood education and is a full-time student in the diploma. Her RTO arranges a set of student placements in 3 different centres. In total, she spends 40 6-hour days in those work placements. The RTO would be able to complete her assessment for this unit after she had done a minimum of 20 of those days. So when you are organising training, you'll need to make sure that you have work placements in place to help students meet this requirement. That's performance evidence. Now we'll look at knowledge evidence. In the case of the first sample unit, someone might demonstrate knowledge evidence by knowing how to find particular documents, how to navigate through those documents to find the bits relevant to this particular unit. In the case of the second sample unit, there is a lot of detailed knowledge required about babies and toddlers. As a trainer, you need to make sure that you teach this knowledge at the level of detail or complexity outlined in the unit. As an assessor, you need to work out how best to assess it. The Assessment Strategies Guide, one of the companion volumes, has some useful ideas about how to do this. After knowledge evidence comes the final heading under assessment requirements, Conditions of Assessment. This section covers what the assessor needs to use and where assessment must happen. In the first sample unit, the assessor must use the framework document, while in the second example unit, it makes clear that the assessment will need to be done with real babies under the supervision of a qualified person. It also sets out any specific requirements of the assessor. These are examples of conditions of assessment. The main point to note here is that they can be different from unit to unit. Right at the end of the assessment requirements, there is a heading saying Links that shows the homepage of the Community Services and Health Industry Skills Council. On the CS&HISC homepage, there is a link to all the related companion volumes of the training package. So that's a quick overview of the units and assessment requirements. To look at all the units you are interested in, go to training.gov.au. For more about how to interpret and use assessment requirements, go to one or more of the companion volumes, all on the CS&HISC website.